Welcome to this Meat and Potatoes podcast. Today we're joined by Colby Jenkins, who is the director at Dixie State University's Atwood Innovation Plaza. How are you,
Hey,
Colby?
great. Hi, Garrett. Thanks for having me.
Yes, welcome. So it's still Dixie State, which rolls off the tongue nicely. What's it going to be called in the future, do you think?
I do not know, and that is not in my scope to determine. But yeah, it sounds like there will be change in the air,
Got it.
according from the Utah legislature. Yeah, but
Interesting.
names may change, but people and good qualities and programs remain.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's one of the cool schools in our state and very unique. And a lot of people have been to Dixie, whether it's for a year or their entire education. So it's pretty beloved. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Atwood Innovation Plaza is?
Yeah, you bet. So we are a Dixie State University building entity. We're located physically just across the street from the football stadium. And our mission is to support and resource and help cultivate ideas, whether they're from students or the community. We service everyone. All comers are welcome here to bring their ideas, to grow and create and to incubate those ideas towards thriving businesses that will eventually provide jobs for this region. So with that comes all kinds of things, but that's essentially what we are.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's great that it's open to the community as well, because to have these types, whether it's an accelerator, an incubator, a business resource center, communities need something like this for a gathering point and a catalyst. And if you have more than one, great, but you need at least one. And, you guys are doing it right. And it covers everything from, PowerPoint and a dream companies to those that, have a team and funding and everything in between, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And we have the largest makerspace in the state of Utah, from a lab full of various shapes and sizes of 3D printers, high-end sewing machines, graphic printers, and then a wood shop and a metal shop with all kinds of gear. So you can come and just create if you're a hobbyist, or if you're a businessman trying to build a prototype, then we support that as well. Businessmen or women are all welcome here.
That sounds amazing. And if I was a student at Dixie State, I'd prefer to spend time in there.
Yeah, and one thing we really focus on is providing that active learning, active opportunities for the students. So with the companies that are incubating here, we throw our students in with them to gain that real life experience, and they can also do projects as part of their college education and gain credit that way. So it's kind of a win-win for all involved here.
Yeah. The educational system is a lot more flexible than when I went to school, and a lot more fun, it seems like, too.
Yeah.
Self-starting, and you can kind of control your own destiny a little bit more.
Yeah, and pull that experience forward instead of waiting till you graduate and now get experience.
All right. Nice head start. So how did you end up as the director?
Yeah, so my wife and I are both Utah natives, and through my military career, we've been all over the United States, and it was time for us to get back closer to home, particularly to our aging parents and family. And so we found some land and opportunity here, and that caused me to look for a job. And fortunately, I found this role, and it's been wonderful. It's allowing me to harness all of my diverse experience, from being a Green Beret in the Special Forces to working in the Pentagon to working most recently at Google. That all comes together here, and so it's been a great opportunity for us to be back home, closer to family and friends, but also in an ideal situation here.
Yes, as careers go, this seems like pretty good timing, and I think, and we'll talk about your career in a little while, but the students are going to benefit immensely from your experience, and it's probably fun to be around all that energy because you've been around high energy jobs in the past, and you probably need that, would be my guess. I don't think you could have a low energy job and be happy.
It's fine to lay on the couch sometimes, but yeah, the day to day, it's great to be around people who are truly innovating. We have, students who have invented like tremendous things that we've helped them patent to now their companies. So yeah, that's really what drew me to this opportunity. I knew I would be working with with geniuses, people who have initiative and true entrepreneurs and are not afraid to take risk. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. So some of the things we've tried at Silicon Slopes and have done successfully are we have regional chapters throughout the state, downtown Salt Lake, Logan. There's one out in Price and Emery counties, and then St. George, because Silicon Slopes is the entire state, and there's no little brother complex anymore, from what I can gather in St. George. There's a lot going on, some big companies that are scaling. There's companies getting funded. There's Tech Ridge. So it's a healthy, standalone, robust ecosystem by all accounts, and growing very quickly, which is a double-edged sword. We'll talk about that as well. But so for those along the Wasatch Front, especially, with the change of the last 12 months, what are some ideas that you guys have down there that companies and groups and individuals up here can interact, work, and partner with what's going on in St. George?
Yeah, and you're right. The growth here and I'm a great example. I left Google in California last May, right in the height of the pandemic, and we didn't flee California, but we were happy to come here to Utah, and there are many others who are similar like that, who, as the pandemic has allowed others to see they can work from anywhere, and St. George is an ideal location. You can't beat the geography and the weather, so we're definitely attracting people, and in terms of how that supports the business environment and specifically the tech side of it. Where I sit, at the Atwood Innovation Plaza, we are the ideal kind of gateway, where people can come and use our greenfield, kind of our sandbox to explore, to grow and build and innovate, incubate, if you will. And then as that happens, the community from here, me being on the front end of the pipeline, all the way up to Tech Ridge, where you have companies like the former Printer Logic, now Vasion, and Zonos, and other companies that are growing, Busy Bee. There's an ideal pipeline for new startups to companies that are already in the multi-millions and growing. And then the workforce, as people are leaving other states and coming here, that skill, that knowledge base is growing tremendously as well. And well, you can't help but drive around here and see the growth. As you noted, that's a double-edged sword, but it also attracts a great workforce, which also enables companies to harness that talent and grow rapidly.
Yeah, it is a happening place, to say the least. And with that, you can kind of see the trajectory, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. And I assume the city council and the mayor and every economic development folks they're earning their paycheck currently, and will into the future. So how do you envision the Atwood Innovation Plaza playing a role in that, and what are some of the ideas you guys have to help ride this wave?
Just continued growth. Our building is physically an old elementary school that we've remodeled, but there is still area for growth inside. For example, we just got the first order of equipment in, but we are building a brand new STEM academy that will support the K through 12 age group, and that will be, it's to this point, it's kind of been sustained throughout campus, kind of hopscotched around, but now it's going to be physically here in my building. So that will complete the front end of the pipeline. You enter our building as a K, work up through 12, use our makerspace, and ultimately complete the pipeline as a Dixie student. So in terms of the Innovation Plaza, we will grow with the population, both in adding capability to the building and then eventually becoming an innovation campus at another location possibly. But yeah, nothing but growth and continued funding. I bet probably once a week I host someone that St. George has no shortage of retired, accomplished men and women. And I will host people who literally say, hey, I'm bored. I have skills. I have resources. I want to help. How can I help? And boy, I'm happy to put people to work. And it's been fascinating to see people good to their word, who I'll connect them with one of our incubating companies, and it's just creates a great relationship.
Yeah, it's not easy to build an ecosystem, but it's occurred down there, and it takes a lot of different people with different ideas and agendas. And it's funny, what you just described from from the cradle to college graduation. There's probably going to be some parents that are mad at that their kids won't leave home because now they have everything they need here. And there's probably some parents that'll be happy that their kids don't leave, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. I was in a meeting, probably been a couple months ago now, though, that folks were saying we're tired of seeing our kids leave. Our kids would come back if there were jobs here
Yeah.
that would bring them here, and now I think that's starting to, that paradigm is shifting, as you alluded to. We have jobs that are attracting. You know, I left Google to come here. Google, I was making great money, great opportunities, but I left to come here for the location and the opportunity, and there are many others like me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's great that there's those mentors that have the time and money, and then there's the young kids that need that. All right, so we've alluded to some of your job history, and I love diverse resumes. So I'll tick off a few of them. You worked at the Defense Innovation Unit, Google as a global program manager, Office of the Secretary of the Army Legislative Liaison, Office of the Secretary of Defense Counterterrorism Policy Advisor, U.S. Special Operations Command, and then Green Beret and graduated from West Point. And so let's start with the Green Beret part. So that's very selective, right? You've got to earn that one. You can't just wander in and say, I'm going to be a Green Beret. Real quick, for those that don't know what the process is, how did that go for you?
It's definitely selective, and there is an actual selection that you go through to be selected. Yeah, I was in a different body ago. I was in the best shape of my life at that point, and selection is very physically demanding and also mentally demanding. They put us in situations that, because a Green Beret is eventually going to be on a small team and could be in the corner of the world where you have to depend on yourself and your teammates to survive and nobody else. So how can you get out of those unconventional situations? And so selection is designed to put you in this unconventional scenarios and see how you respond, and then just load you up with physical requirements. And so, yeah, I was fortunate to come out on the good side of that and was selected. And then, you know, a year plus worth of small unit tactics training, team training, learning how to be an A-team commander. And then depending on what team or group you get assigned to, then you take your language training. And so for me, fortunately, I'd served a Mormon mission in Brazil. So I had a Portuguese and then Spanish as a secondary. So I went to a group where I didn't need language training. I already had it. So I went right to a team.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
So Green Berets, they can kick indoors and they can clear buildings and they can do all of that, but they also have to be consensus builders and think on their feet because they're always outnumbered, right? And the QRF, quick reaction force, might not be that quick. But they're also really good at the asymmetrical stuff. And
Yeah,
so
you've done your homework.
well, people might associate, you know, Green Berets with, you know, the John Wayne movie, or, you know, there's been a ton of meetings, of movies, but talk a little bit more about the mental aspect, making decisions quick, and how does training enable you to make those decisions at the right time?
Yeah. Well, thanks for doing your homework, because you're right on. The insignia of special forces is crossed arrows, as opposed to, say, crossed cannons or crossed bazookas. They're crossed arrows to represent how we operate. An arrow hits its target without any notice, and maybe pulled, and nobody will have known where that came from or how it succeeded in hitting the bullseye. And that's our design. We are, for example, when I was in Colombia, South America, in the jungles, you know, we were in and out doing operations, and the less we were noticed, the better. The more that we could plug in with our Colombian counterparts and empower them, kind of push them forward and support them in their success through our indirect engagement, the better. So our motto is quiet professionals, and that's exactly what we try to do. If we can go in, accomplish our mission, and come out and nobody knows, then that's a success. We don't need to have movies or write books about our operations like perhaps our other special operations counterparts do.
Yeah,
I won't name any names like Navy SEALs, but that's what I would say.
yeah. It's the rivalry between you guys is fun
Yeah,
and needed, right? There's
yeah, it's good fun.
you got to have a good toolbox, and I think the Green Berets are critical, right? Like
Yes, yeah,
you don't want them as your enemy. I know that.
yeah, yeah.
All right, well, cool. So you make it through selection, and then spend time in South America and then Afghanistan as well, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And so it's obviously stressy, right? And it could be you're interacting with a warlord and negotiating on behalf of something big.
Yeah.
And the buck stops with you, or there could be actual bullets flying, or the helicopters uh, getting there too slow. Um, how does the training make it so that you can act with confidence?
Yeah, really the design of a special forces A team enables that confidence. An A team is comprised of diverse expertise. You'll have two of every expertise: weapons, communications, demolition, engineering, medical, and then an intelligence sergeant and a team sergeant, and then me as the captain. So with that tremendous toolbox of expertise, it allows us to be flexible, allows us to enter nearly any situation and be able to pivot to it, because the best laid plan goes out the door as soon as the boots hit the ground. So just having that confidence and training and that professional foundation that we take into a battle enables us to execute on contingencies, and make decisions, because you have that confidence that the guy to your left and right, he's the best at what he does. So if something's changed, then you can make a decision knowing that he's going to execute without question and precisely. So that definitely enabled a lot of success, depending on the battlefield, or regardless of the battlefield. I took my team to Afghanistan, came back, went to Paraguay, where we helped do interdict just different things going on there, and then came back and went to Colombia. So different battlefields, same team, but same principles that allowed us to execute.
Yeah. And how many repetitions do you think you guys go through in between missions to where you feel comfortable, right? Like there's merit to drill and repetition.
Yeah,
How often do you guys train versus be in the field?
we are always training, constantly training. Yesterday's success does not guarantee today's operational success. So whether we came off a target and caught the guy we were looking for, or gained the intelligence we're looking for, boy, tomorrow's target's going to be a new one. And so that's really the beauty of an A team is the guys on the team that they eat, drink, and live competition, healthy competition amongst the team, always challenging each other to do the best, always cross training. For example, the medics. If we had one example comes to mind, we had a young Afghan boy who was out with his sheep, and he picked up an old Russian hand grenade, and fortunately it just destroyed the kid's hand. Well, rather than my medics provide all of that aid, they had fortunately done so much cross training with the team that my two radio guys were the primary aid givers, with my medics supervising. But so just that cross training enables us to continually stay sharp and deep in our talent.
Yeah. And that is indicative and reminds me of a startup, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The CEO is also the sales leader.
yeah,
Sometimes has to handle the tech, is HR. And it's that way for quite a while, right? Until you
yeah,
get to a certain number of employees. And so, there's plenty of entrepreneurs that know that like this isn't, what I train for, what I'm good at, but I have to do it. And ultimately, it makes you a much better entrepreneur because you can empathize and relate to somebody in HR or finance. And if needed, you can always jump back in, even if you
yeah.
don't really enjoy that. So I'm a big proponent of, overlapping and redundancy when it comes to that type of stuff. Okay, so you decided, eventually you've had enough adventure wearing that that uniform and you decide to go into possibly something even harder, and that's like policy and politics and
Yeah.
all of that type of stuff. So what was that transition like, and what are some of the a cool story or two and some learning experiences you saw with the big old bureaucratic wheels moving?
Yeah, it's you know, whether I was so Afghanistan's one battlefield, but Capitol Hill is another battlefield, and I found the things I learned, both that trained me in selection and then the qualification course that I then employed on the different battlefields, were the same on Capitol Hill. You know, in Afghanistan, I sat and drank chai, drank a lot of tea with the mullahs and tribal leaders. But on Capitol Hill, there are still tribes, there are still tribal leaders. They may not wear turbans and have long beards, but it's the same principles, same characteristics of trying to build those relationships of trust. So that really, even though I wasn't wearing body armor and a rifle on the hill, I was still executing kind of in a similar mindset of, okay, who are the people that represent the interests that I need to be a part of? Who are the gatekeepers? How do I build relationships of trust with them? And then how do we find common ground so that we can both have a victory? And that's what it was all about in Afghanistan. For example, I couldn't walk into a village and see a crop, field full of poppies and just slash and burn, because now I cut them off at the knees and created a village of enemies. I had to bring new crops. I had to find some type of compromise. And same thing on Capitol Hill. Same principles. Neat stories. One thing I took away is that even though I may be of one political persuasion, I was apolitical in my role. But I learned that no matter what the world perspective was, everyone is working hard for the most part. On Capitol Hill, in the White House, those folks are working dusk till dawn and then some for the good of the country. And we just sometimes saw the world differently. So recognizing that people are working hard allows for some empathy and that long-term vision when you're engaging in a policy or discussion. Neat stories. As a Green Beret liaison, I got to travel the world with members of Congress and staff. One particular trip, I left with some Senate Armed Service Committee staffers to show them some key operations that we were doing around the world that were kind of tied together. And we flew from DC west, made stops in Hawaii, Philippines, Malaysia, Jordan, and came back from the east. So literally around the world, went to the west and came back from the east. And so to be able to show those staffers and put them in the front seat with our special operators and see what's going on was priceless for all involved.
Yeah.
Lots of good opportunities like that.
Yeah. People laugh at the moniker slogan "Hearts and Minds," but really, if you're able to do that, whether it's with a petulant teenager or some congressman or some mullah, everybody makes you earn it. They make you earn it. And I think Green Berets are, classically positioned to understand both parties and practice empathy and still try to come to an agreement. Okay, so then that's still government, and you're interacting with more people now. But then you decided to head over to Google, and that's a whole nother culture, probably as opposite as it gets to the Pentagon. How did that work for you, and how did you manage to be successful there?
Yeah, I literally jumped from the Pentagon to Google, and like you said, two completely different worlds. And the Pentagon at that time, still operating in the Pony Express in terms of communication, and then I go to Google and I'm using Google Suite and dynamic documents, sharing just in terms of processes. It was a steep learning curve for me, but similarly, I got to work with people who were very skilled, just had different life experiences. I had come from a boss who wore 4 stars on his collar and who regularly went to the White House and with me in tow or senior meetings, to now I was working for my first Google boss was a woman, a female who was gay. So I went from a 4-star number 2 guy in the military to now a female boss who is gay. Talk about different ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
But still tremendous leaders on both parts, and I learned a lot from both. And so I had to learn that how to adapt and understand my operational environment. I couldn't come into a Google staff meeting and say and run it like I would in the Pentagon. Hey, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do that, and why aren't you ready? And kind of be more stern. In Google, there was a lot more persuasion required, and really the work spoke for itself. That was I think the beauty of Google. If you provided quality, good work, good data, could read data and interpret it, then people noticed, and you had a voice. Your voice is heard. So I learned quickly and about that. And going back to a comment you made earlier about the CEO, I've noticed here, and then is why I was reminded at Google. I saw a lot as well. That a good CEO or a good leader recognizes that he or she may not have an expertise that's required, but what makes them good is they recognize it and they step back and say, hey, I need help with this, or can you help me with this, and can you find someone who has this particular skill, because I don't, and I need it. And I saw that a lot at Google. Good leaders would find the talent and bring them in and put them in a position to succeed. And that's kind of my job here with our incubators. The student inventor who's now the CEO, he doesn't know how to do all those things like you're saying. So we try and surround them with talent so the team can be balanced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, in the early days of Google, Sergey and Larry, when they raised that funding in the late 90s from Sequoia and Kleiner, one of the caveats, well, the only caveat that the VCs got, because Google was dictating terms, was you guys have to bring on a CEO in the near future, right? And I believe that was Eric Schmidt. But and, to their credit, they understood that and took the terms, because it probably wouldn't be nearly as successful as it is today, with them trying to wear that many hats. Yeah, so the ones that have gone up and down the elevator a few more times than others understand the importance of that. And if you can get that ingrained in your head when you're younger, it's a big benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
So did you talk about your background or your resume well at Google, or did you find it better to kind of get your work done and be a high performer and just go home at the end of the night?
A little bit of both. Google prides itself in being open and inclusive, but I found that sometimes that open and inclusiveness was agreeable as long as you agreed with what they wanted you to be open and inclusive about.
Yep.
But I had great teammates and great leaders. I never felt discriminated against or anything for perhaps my religious views or where I'm from. But no, I found that people, as I would maybe share a little story here or there, that that's really what gave way to where I do public speaking now. I would share a combat story or principle, and I had a director who said, "Boy, you should develop that into a presentation. Let's have you present to the team." And one thing led to another, and then I presented at a global program manager conference, and these are just slides that I'd prepared with some stories and tried to fleece together a leadership and team building presentation. And before I knew it, I was now in New York City, then I was in London, then I was in Singapore, and I was back in New York City several times presenting to different teams. And had it not been for that curiosity and allowing me to share stories, then I wouldn't have had those opportunities. And it's just grown since then.
Yeah. Well, so people are creatures of habit, and you've worked in the government side, the military side, and the private side, and they have ways of running meetings or doing after action reviews, those types of things. Do you find yourself falling back into how Google did it or how the Green Berets did it in interacting with just normal civilians?
I'd say a little bit of both. And that's what's been great about this particular role. I'm able to bring in experience from all those backgrounds. I'm interacting with people who are functioning kind of in the tech environment. So I'm able to use the skills I learned at Google, but then those basic leadership skills of, okay, we need to build a team. We need to make some connections with investors. We need to help you present and manage things efficiently. Those military type skills serve me well in that regard, and just pure leadership and people interaction. So I'm fortunate to be in a role now that allows me to draw on all those opportunities.
Yeah, you can always tell you're around somebody that's been in the military, like if you're out hunting or even just in a boardroom, because they're always trying to do sand tables, right? Like, oh, let's put this rock here, that's you, and this is north, and they can't help themselves, right?
Yeah, that's right. There's
tried and true method, that's for sure.
yeah.
Well, this is all very fun and great. So you also, you're the director there, but you also kind of have your own business where you'll go and speak and kind of share your insights and career with people. And how do you find that? Like you're kind of the center point, and you're kind of selling yourself and your brand. Were you comfortable out of the gate doing that, or is it something you have to learn?
Yeah, it's been interesting in that as Green Berets, our mindset is to not seek that spotlight. So what's really allowed me to share those stories in a comfortable fashion is at the very beginning of my presentation, I quickly kind of humble myself and level the playing field and say, hey, whatever you're hearing from me is just a snapshot of a window through which you can look to the millions of others who have served or continue to serve. So I kind of take it as my role to be educating and sharing experience so that people can connect even stronger with those who are serving. So I try to make it not so much about me, even though I'm sharing my stories. I hope it just connects others as they do listen.
Yeah, good answer. Two final questions, then we'll let you go. I know you're busy. What's your favorite weapons platform that you ever used? And then second question, who's your kind of favorite military leader from Genghis Khan, Alexander Great, all the way to now?
Oh, great questions. How much time do we have to go?
Go as long as you want.
Yeah. Weapons platform, boy, what first comes to mind, it's not so much a weapons platform, but a Black Hawk helicopter. Even though I'm a ground guy, it kind of takes me back to Friday Night Lights when I was in high school football and getting ready to take the field. There is probably few feelings than being locked and loaded with your team on the pickup zone, and you can hear those Black Hawks coming. You can just faint hear them, and just the adrenaline slowly starts to ride. And then, boy, as those birds flare and land, and then you're getting on, it's just like taking the football field as you're inbound to a target. And
yeah,
it's not necessarily a weapons platform, but boy, getting on a bird when you're heading into a target is an incredible feeling.
Yeah,
That's quite a rush, I guess you could say. And sometimes looking at, if we're fortunate to have an Apache gunship in Overwatch, bringing those forces to bear gives us a lot of confidence. And for another day, I could tell the story about when I was shot down in a Chinook helicopter, my team. So tremendous platforms, but the enemy always gets a vote.
Yeah.
Regardless. In terms of military leaders, the one who has personally impacted me the most for good is General Doug Brown. Used to be the commander of Special Operations Command, 4-star general. He enlisted in the Army as a private and rose to the rank of 4-star general. And in our country's history, I believe there's only been 17 people who've done that, from private to 4-star. And
yeah,
I met him in Afghanistan when he visited my team for Christmas 16 years ago. And to this day, he's remained a close mentor and friend. He promoted me, flew out from Florida and promoted me to colonel 2 years ago, and has stayed in touch. Just a great example of personal servant leadership, but then, boy, he can walk the talk too.
yeah. Yeah, those are rare breeds, and that's why they have 4 stars, and
Yeah.
they know how to do it all. Very
Yes,
cool.
sir.
Well, this has been fun and insightful, and again, appreciate you taking the time. And we'll link out to to the Innovation Plaza website, the Atwood Innovation Plaza website. And if people want to get involved, I'm sure there's plenty of buttons they can click and forms they
Yes.
can fill out, and they can find their way to you guys.
Yeah, thank you. And if I could just add for my speaking, for my presentations, it's just colbyjenkins.com.
Perfect.
colbyjenkins.com. So yeah, thank you.
You bet. All right. Thank you, Colby. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Garrett. Nice talking to you.